All right. Well, I think we have a pretty simple menu today. We're going to get a lot done in a short amount of time. So we're going to be, as usual, we'll be multitasking. I just want to check in. Does everyone have their parsley chopped? Cool. Everyone's fish defrosting? Molly, is your fish defrosting? Somewhat. It's okay. We'll get to that in a little bit. We're going to do some other things first. How are you doing, Owen? Hi, Ginger.
Hi, Lynna. Sorry, we're almost here. Remind me how much parsley. I'm gonna just chop it really quick.
It's just like a garnish at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just gonna add it to a sauce.
Get on to Owen. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Owen. Hey, Ella. Hi. Are you cooking today too, Owen? Owen, Ty. Cool. Good. Okay. So Emmett, can you let somebody else in? So Emmett is my executive producer today. If he'd get off his phone. Hey, Griffin.
Hi.
Hi. Avery, are you cooking with a friend today or just you?
It's just me today.
Oh, okay. It's you're Zoe.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just you, Zoe. Hi, Zoe.
Yeah.
The name said Avery, but I was like, that does not look like Avery. Cool. Hi, Heidi. Okay, I'm so sorry, everybody, that my email got out so late. I think I'm not going to use Google Calendar anymore because I got some emails from people saying that they hadn't been receiving the invitation through Google Calendar. I think most people do, but not everybody. And so I think I'll be sending it out through the old-fashioned email way just to guarantee that everybody gets it. So yeah, I have a fun list of dishes we're going to cook for the next few weeks as we start school. So I hope as you start school, you'll still feel inspired to cook with me on Sundays. I think, it's just a nice way to start the week or end the week. I love it. I think about it all the time. So anyhow, let's get going. I don't know how many of us I think we're going to have a smaller group than usual this week because I got the email out so late, but we're going to make three very classic French dishes. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to turn on your burners with the pot of boiling water. So you should have a pot about halfway full of water. It should be a pretty deep pot because we're going to be doing two things with that. We're going to be utilizing the water for both blanching the green beans and boiling our mashed potatoes. So we're going to boil mashed potatoes. You can also steam, but we're going to boil today since we have the pot of hot water going. So go ahead and turn your burner up onto to high so to get your water boiling, preferably with a lid because the lid will help get the water boiling faster. It'll kind of retain the heat inside faster. No need to do anything to the water yet. We're going to add salt to it in a little bit. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and chop some of our mise en place. We're going to chop our shallots and let's slice up our lemons first while our cutting board is clean. So grab your lemons. The lemons we're going to use both as a garnish, but you'll also be able to use the lemons for people to be able to, squeeze over their fish. So go ahead and slice your lemons into like quarters. And then I recommended having 2 or 3 lemons. Leave one as a half. Okay, so leave one lemon sliced in half, and then leave this one because we'll use this later to deglaze our pan. So just set this aside. And then I have a little ramekin here. I'm just going to cut the rest of my lemons into quarters. And so this way people later on will use it to kind of garnish our plate of fish. You cut it into quarters or sixths or eighths. Hello, welcome Gianna and Kailani. Hello. Okay.
Hi.
So I'm just
sorry.
Hi. No, it's
finishing
okay, Anne.
up a book club meeting. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
me right now.
Okay. So Anne, what I ask people to do is just turn your pot of water on to boil on the stove.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
You're not that behind. So
okay.
so yeah, just turn your hot pot of water on to boil on the stove, and then slice your lemons into 6, but also leave half a lemon just as a half. We'll use this later to deglaze our pan when we make a sauce. All right, so we'll do that with our lemons. And then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna, let's go ahead and let's chop our shallots. So grab your shallot. I guess we could do like a quick, so shallot, it looks like this. It's used quite often in French and Asian cuisine. It is oniony, so it will make you cry. But it also has a slightly milder flavor, and it's really pretty. It's pink, so I use it a lot in my cooking. I use it for salad dressings as like a vinaigrette, and I saute a lot of vegetables with it. So we're gonna use it to saute our green beans in. So I'm just gonna, again, we're just getting our mise en place ready. This shallot's kind of big. I'm just gonna probably just use half of it. So I cut it the same way as I cut an onion. I cut the ends off, just like that. And then I have my compost bowl. I'm just gonna use my little compost bowl here today. Peel it. Okay, and it's up to you. I'm gonna leave it up to you whether you wanna use the whole shallot. It depends on how big your shallot is. If you wanna use your whole shallot or just half a shallot, I think I'll just go ahead and just use half for now because it's pretty big. It's kind of medium size. There are bigger ones out there, but so I'm gonna cut it in half vertically. Okay, and I'm gonna put it flat side down. I'm gonna set aside my other half, and I'll just wrap it up and put it in the fridge later. And then I'm gonna make these little tiny cuts in my shallot, just like that. I'm not cutting it all the way through. So I'm just cutting it like little tiny cuts, about like, maybe like 1/8 of an inch. This is why it's really handy to have a sharp knife. Okay. And then I'm gonna just cut it very thinly crossways. So you just get these little finely diced little pieces of shallot. I know it looks like a lot, which is why I suggested we just use half. We can also use this also to make a sauce later. I'll show you, if you want, you can incorporate some shallot into the sauce that we're gonna make for the sole. Okay, so I know I know not every kid, not every person loves fish, but I know sole is, it's a very mild and actually kind of slightly sweet fish. It's really delicate. And I know that Rosa here does not like fish, but sole is one of the fish she will eat. So one of the reasons why I chose this dish was because I knew I'd be able to get Rosa to eat it. Okay, so I'm just gonna set aside the shallot that I've cut. I'm just gonna put it into my ramekin. Okay. And I'm sorry if you're crying. My eyes are watering too. All right, so we'll go ahead and just get all that shallot off the board. And then the last thing we're gonna do, and I see some of you are still working, so I'll let you finish up cutting up your shallot. And just set aside the bowl.
I'm crying so hard I'm about to die.
Who said that? Is that Xiaomei? Was that you, Xiaomei? Yeah. I know, my eyes are watering too. And while you're still cutting up your shallot, I'll just go ahead and take this time to wrap up my little tiny piece of my half a shallot with plastic and put it in the fridge, and I'll use it tomorrow for a salad dressing or something. Oh, Sonia, you crying too? Any questions? If in the future you're ever not able to find a shallot, it's perfectly fine to substitute a small onion or even garlic. So shallot is, you know, like I said, it's a great ingredient to have on hand. I usually buy like 6 or 8 at a time. And we're having just a quick, Emmett's fixing something for me here. Everyone done chopping their shallots for the most part? Mouse is on my screen right now. I can see it on the edge of my screen here. Just move it to the right or to the left. All right. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, we're done with, oh no, one more thing. We still have our cutting boards out. This is the last thing we're going to use our cutting boards for. I have our Yukon Gold potatoes. So I chose Yukon Gold potatoes this is my favorite kind of potato to mash because I like to include the skin when I have mashed potatoes. Rather than going through the trouble of peeling all these potatoes, I tend to enjoy it with the skin. I think the skin offers a lot of nutrients, and you know, skin is often where most of the nutrients are gathered, but it's a really thin skin. So Yukon Gold potatoes, they're slightly golden, as you can see, and has a very, very thin skin. You could, if you want, peel the potatoes, but for this recipe today, I would like you, if possible, for you to try it unpeeled. And just examine, I know I asked all of you to wash your potatoes. As you wash, like kind of make sure that if there are any like black marks on it, like I have this like kind of scar on here, I'm just gonna cut it off. You don't have to cut it too deep. They're usually not that deep, but just cut it off so that you just, you know, just any big like black scars or anything that you see that might look, you know, suspicious, just cut it off your potato. But we're gonna leave the skin on, and then we're going to quarter these potatoes. The nice thing too about these Yukon Gold potatoes is, like I said, if you cut it open, they're slightly golden. So it kind of makes it look pretty and buttery too. And the texture is just really nice. So I'm just cutting I'm cutting each potato into either quarters. It depends on how big your potatoes are. If you have big Yukon Gold potatoes, you know, cut them into eighths. You want chunks that are about the same size so they cook at the same rate. So I have these kind of medium-sized Yukon Gold potatoes, and I'm just going to cut them into quarters, just like that. Okay, I'll leave these on my cutting board so you can see what they look like. And again, don't forget to examine each potato for any scars, any black marks. If I was using russet potatoes for mashing, I would peel it because russet potatoes tend to have a thicker, harder skin. But yeah, these potatoes have very thin skins, so I think it's much more nutritious to keep the skin on, and it's less work. And as I've said before, I'm a very lazy cook, so any shortcuts I can take, the better. I just noticed a little scar, so I'm just cutting it off. Okay. All right. So I'm putting all my potatoes into just a big glass bowl that I kept my potatoes in. We'll use this bowl again later to mash our potatoes. Okay. Just a quick note too, if you ever have potatoes that have been sitting around for too long and they start to sprout, those are generally past their prime. If there's a little bit of sprouting, like a couple sprouts here and there on a potato, I think it's still fine to kind of just like take out the sprout, but generally they say not to use potatoes that have already sprouted. And the sooner you use most vegetables, the higher the nutrition content. Corbin, are you back in your Oakland kitchen? Oh, you're back in town. Nice. How long are you in town for? Are you going to go back to Carson City again?
Like a month.
You're here for a month? Oh, awesome. Okay, we're coming over. Okay, so once you're done with your potatoes, you can go ahead and put away your cutting board. We're done with our knife and our cutting board. So let's put this, you can put this away in your sink. We won't be needing this anymore. so the next thing now we're going to do is we're going to handle our fish. So if your fish is in your fridge, go ahead and grab your fish. But before we put it on a pan, while your hands are still clean, I know I'm a little bit, I'm always talking about like clean hands, and before you touch the fish and before you handle your fish, let's do some other prep first. We're going to make our flour seasoning. So if you're using all-purpose flour or gluten-free flour, now's your time to grab a measuring cup. Grab your measuring cup and measure out. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means, but just about a cup of flour. Okay, put your flour into your shallow pie dish. So I suggested that you get a shallow pie dish that has some edges, but if not, you can use a dinner plate too. And so grab about a cup of flour. And this is what we're gonna use to dredge our fish in. We're gonna lightly dredge, kind of drag each fillet of fish into this dish of flour. And then keep your flour nearby, but don't put it away quite yet, because just in case you need a little bit more. So I'm just spreading out my flour in my pie dish, and I'm going to take a healthy pinch of salt and just sprinkle it over the flour. Okay, healthy pinch. Healthy pinch is like, I don't know, like a half a teaspoon. And I'm just spreading some pepper in also. We're going to be seasoning the fish as well, but this also guarantees that your fish will be properly seasoned if you also season the flour. So I'm just going to use my hands to just kind of mix it together. Okay, there. So your fish flour, your seasoning flour should be done. Okay, so now let's grab your fish and a clean dinner plate that looks like this, along with a sheet tray that's been lined with parchment paper.
Lena, sorry, this is Lisa.
Yeah.
We're a little behind. So in
Okay.
the flour, you just sprinkled some salt, and that was anything else?
Yeah, about a half a teaspoon of salt, a healthy pinch, and some pepper.
Oh, pepper. Okay.
Yeah. For those of you who are daring, if you want, you could also put in some cayenne pepper. There's lots of ways to make the seasoning more flavorful. But for this first time that we're doing this dish, I figured we'd just make it the classic French way, which is just salt and pepper. Okay. So go ahead and check your water. Is your water boiling yet? Before you handle your fish and have your hands be fishy? Okay. My water is boiling. Is anyone else's water starting to boil already? Okay, Corbin, Lisa, Molly, okay, Talia, cool. So if your water is boiling, grab your kosher salt again, okay, and take the lid off and put in like a really healthy handful. Like I want you to season this water as if you were seasoning for pasta. You want it to taste salty, and you want the water to taste as salty as the ocean. So go ahead and put in a good healthy handful of salt. Okay. So I'm putting in my salt. And it's just gonna, if your water's boiling already, it's just, you don't need to stir it. It's going to dissolve all on its own. So I just, again, put in a big handful of salt. And now, I'm gonna see where everyone is. Before, again, we haven't handled our fish yet, so don't worry about your fish just yet. While our hands are still clean and non-fishy, I'm gonna have you, we're gonna blanch our green beans. So since most of you, is anyone's water not boiling yet? Okay, it looks like everyone's moving around, everyone's getting ready. Okay, Griffin, is your water almost there? Griffin?
Like 3/4 of the way.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead and add some salt, Griffin, to a healthy handful of salt to your hot water. It doesn't have to be super boiling. It just has to be close. Even if it's close to boiling, you guys are fine. So your green beans, I'll talk for a little bit about these green beans. So I chose haricot vert, which is this French green bean. They're very thin and tender, and they're crispy. Okay, there are lots of other like blue lake green beans and green beans that you can get from your garden. If you don't have these French green beans, totally fine. What you'll do is just blanch your green beans a little bit longer. If you have French green beans, you'll just blanch these for about 2 minutes. That's all they need. You just want them to look really deep green. And then we're going to go ahead and take them out of the water and put them in a bowl of ice water, which we'll prepare together. But right now we're just going to go ahead and put your haricot vert into your tender French green beans into this pot of salted boiling water. Okay, does anyone not have, besides Taryn and Coda, does anyone not have French green beans? If you don't, okay, so yeah, Lisa, Corbin, Natalie, if you don't have French green beans, Griffin, go ahead and put them in for like 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, put them in a little bit longer. If you have French green beans, just 2 minutes is just fine. Okay, so I'm putting in my green beans into the water. Okay, I'm just gonna let it sit. Oh, and make sure they're destemmed too. I think I mentioned this in the instructions, but I forgot to ask you. Make sure the stems are off. Okay, and go ahead and take your tongs or your spider, whichever, either one that you have, and just make sure just to push it into the water. You can turn the heat now down to low. As long as it's in the hot water, you can turn it to low. And then the next thing, once you've added your green beans in the next 2 or 3 minutes, hey Google, set a timer for 1 minute and 50 seconds. I'm gonna fill a clean bowl with ice, okay? About like, cup or 2 of ice. And then I'm gonna add a little salt, and then I'm gonna put in some water too. So we're making an ice bath now for our green beans. So if you have non-French green beans, set a timer for about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes after you put in your beans. If you have French green beans, put it in for about 2 minutes. And now take a clean bowl, add about a cup or 2 of ice, and then fill it like halfway with water. So what this ice water does, this ice bath does, is it shocks the green beans after you blanch them. And what shocks means that it stops the cooking right away. Because you want the green beans to kind of freeze out the texture that you like it at. If you let it go for too long, it'll become too mushy. With classic French haricot vert, these green beans, you want them to be slightly crunchy. So go ahead and add your ice water and your water into a clean bowl, and also add some salt, just so that everything continues to stay flavored. Okay, so I'm adding about a tablespoon or 2 of salt. And I've talked about this before, but make sure you use kosher salt. I know there's like Morton's iodized salt. That salt tends to be pretty salty. So I use kosher salt in all of my cooking. And my timer is about to go off, so I'm gonna grab my tongs, or you can use a spider too. Stop. And I'm gonna fish my beans directly out of the hot water and straight into my ice bath. And then don't forget to turn off the heat too. Once you've taken the beans out. Okay, cool. Stove. But they should see the. Okay, so if you have tongs, go ahead and fish all of your beans out and push it into the cold water so it immediately stops cooking. These green beans should be slightly tender, but still kind of crispy. And we're gonna cook them some more later, so. And leave your hot water on the stove. Don't do anything with your hot water. We're gonna reuse that hot water for our mashed potatoes. So I have my green beans in my ice bath. Push it in. I'll make sure all the green beans are submerged in the ice water. Okay. And then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take a colander. Use the colander that you use for your green beans as when you wash them, and then take it over to the sink and just pour your green beans into the colander so they can start to drain once they've been shocked. Be careful not to drop any of the beans into the sink, but it's okay if you lose a couple. Okay, and then I have my blanched green beans draining in my colander now. We're gonna let it drain for a little bit so that when we saute them later, they won't splatter out too much all over the place. We're just gonna let them drain. Okay, and then we're just gonna set our beans aside. All right, so let's dredge some fish. So I'm gonna make sure most people are done with their green beans. So your shallots are ready. You can even, I'm gonna place my shallots near my green beans so that they go together, just so I can have as clean a workspace as possible. Okay, so I'm gonna clear some space, and we're going to you're gonna use a lot of space now for your fish. So here we go. Okay. So if you're ready, grab a clean dinner plate or platter and your seasoned flour in your pie dish. Okay, and then grab your fish. So I see Gracie and I went to shopped at Berkeley Bowl at the same time today. And we got our Dover sole from that's boneless and skinless. Does anyone here not have Dover sole? Was anyone not able to find Dover sole? Okay, Corbin, what do you have?
I think petrol sole.
Petrol, okay, Petroli, okay. Anybody else have Petroli sole instead of Dover? Okay, Zoe and Beck, what do you have, Beck?
We have cod, yeah.
Oh, you have cod, okay, that's cool. How about you, Natalie?
Tilapia.
Tilapia, okay, all right. All very good thin fish. So the reason I ask is because tilapia, petroli, and cod are slightly thicker than Dover sole. Dover sole is like super thin. So what I'm gonna be telling you is you're gonna need a little bit more time to saute each side of your fish, okay? So if I say, for example,
Lynna?
I'm gonna turn mine after like 3 or 4 minutes, then for the petroli sole, the cod, and the, who was the other third type? Tilapia, you'll need like maybe like 3 or 4 minutes aside, all right? Yes, David, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Quick 20-second detour. When we were at Berkeley Bowl getting the Dover sole, the woman at the counter asked us, "Are you guys caterers? What are you doing?" Triple the recipe. We told her about you, and we told these amazing Sunday lessons through COVID and how beautiful it is. She said she'd been reading about the importance of food and community,
Yeah.
and that she was so happy to know about this. And she was very happy to be part of everyone's dinner tonight. And it was lovely. We said, we're going to pass that along to Lynna because she would love that.
I do love it. We'll toast her at dinner tonight too.
Her name is Christina. She's
cool.
lovely.
Thank you for getting her name. Is she the new Berkeley Bowl West?
She's at Berkeley Bowl West, yeah.
Awesome.
She used to work
Okay.
somewhere else,
I'm totally gonna.
She's like trying to make community in every interaction of food, just to like build community part of it. And I think you do that so well. And we told her that about you. So thank you.
I'm gonna seek her out. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna seek out Christina. Thanks for telling
Thanks
me
for
that.
the distraction.
Yeah. No problem. Okay, so go ahead and put your fish onto your plate. I got like twice the amount I need I thought I'd be cooking with Corbin today and cooking twice the amount, but I'll just do most of it. Okay, so your hands are now fishy, right? I don't know if both of your hands are fishy. Both of mine are kind of fishy. If you can, try to keep one hand drier than the other hand. I know, Zoe, it's like fishy and like wet, but the wet is good because what's going to happen is the wetness will allow the flour to stick to the fish. So I'm just taking a fillet like this. You can see how thin Dover sole is. This happens to be Dover sole. So I'm just going to place it in my pie pan. I'm just going to put in 2 fillets at once. And we're going to spend the next few minutes just dredging our fish. So I'm using one fishy hand to kind of push the fish, making sure all of the entire surface gets covered in a layer of flour, just like that. And then I'm going to turn it over and do the same with the other side. Yeah, fillet of sole is just perfect. So you can see I have this very thin layer of flour. And then as I lift it up, I'm just going to kind of gently shake off any excess flour. And then I'm going to put it onto my sheet tray like this. I'm just going to lay it here. If you see any patches that don't have flour on it, go ahead and put it back into your flour and just kind of press down. You want to make sure the entire surface of the fish has flour. Okay, just like that. Oh, and the one thing I forgot to ask you to do, everybody, it's not critical. If you have your salt nearby, go ahead and season your fish too. So I'm going to use my other kind of drier hand to season the fish before I dredge it in the flour. Okay, so I'm just seasoning my fish with a fine layer of kosher salt. Okay, there. Okay, so keep doing it. Keep on going. Season your fish and then dredge it in the flour. We'll do this all together. Again, make sure you shake off any excess flour and then put it on your sheet tray. So I like to season along the way. I think seasoning along the way allows every ingredient to get the proper amount of seasoning. If you season at the end, sometimes the seasoning doesn't quite really kind of penetrate into whatever protein or vegetable you're cooking. So seasoning along the way is nice. And then you can actually control the amount of salt you put in better too. And make sure your fillet, like this Dover sole, for those of you who are using Dover sole, it's pretty skinny. It's pretty, it can fold easily too. So make sure that your fillet isn't folded in on itself. And again, if you're using tilapia or a different kind of cod or sole, make sure it's same procedure. Yours just a little bit thicker than the Dover sole I'm using, but same idea. We'll be pan frying in butter. Okay. All right. I don't know about you guys, but our kids are starting school soon. I know Oakland Unified, I don't think any of you go to Oakland Unified schools, but Oakland starts this coming Monday, starts tomorrow. And then Yuming starts next Monday, the 17th, where my kids go to school. And Talia, well, your hands are probably dirty, but I won't make you unmute yourself yet, but Talia, I bet you're starting school pretty soon, and it's okay if when you put your fish down on your sheet tray, it's okay if they're slightly touching. It's totally fine. Talia is going to CPS. And who else do we have? Yeah, Corbin, when do you start? Oh, you're working too. Your hands are dirty too. Never mind. I won't make you touch your computer.
2 weeks. I have a clean hand.
Okay, you have a clean hand. Good. Ella and Owen, do you guys start school soon?
We start on the 24th.
Oh, okay. So you have a couple weeks still.
Yeah.
Nice. Rosa, when do you start? Oh, you have a long time. You're not like, you're till the 31st, huh? Yeah, you're like a motto. You're lucky.
Auntie Lena,
Yeah?
we're running out of space on our sheet trays.
Sheet pan? Okay, you can overlap them. It's okay.
Thank you.
I'll overlap mine too, just so you know it's okay. See, I'm gonna overlap mine. I'm gonna add a few more fillets. Don't forget to season your fish. All right. Okay, cool. This seasoned flour is a very commonly used way of dredging anything you want to fry, either deep fry or pan fry. So if you're going to, for example, pan fry like chicken or shrimp or seafood or any other kind of fish, this is very common mixture. It's just flour or seasoned flour, and sometimes there's other things that you can also put it into egg too and batter it. And I forgot to mention, I know some of you are gluten-free, but you can definitely use gluten-free flour for
Lynna?
pan frying. Yeah? Yeah?
Were we supposed to preheat the oven?
We will in a second.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let's do it together in a couple minutes. We'll do that when we only need to preheat it to like 200. So, okay. I think we're about done. Once you're done with all your fish, just put it on your sheet tray. It's okay if they overlap, McKenna and everybody. Mine's about to overlap too. Emmett's asking me why we got so much fish. Because I like leftovers. And with this fish tomorrow, if you have like some kind of yummy bread, you could make like fish sandwiches if you want, or you could also just pan fry it up and serve it with more leftover mashed potatoes. Might as well just do all of it. So once you're done with all your fish, I don't know if anyone is like me, I still have a couple more to do. Emmett, do you want me to talk to you? And stop asking me questions. Okay. All right, I'm down to my last few. Okay. Good. All right, down to my last fillet. And once you've done dredging your last fillet, or your last fillet, go ahead and toss this flour into your trash and put everything into your sink. So throw away any kind of fishy packaging you might have had, like the plastic bag that the fish might have come in, or put your plate away. But I generally like to throw this flour into the trash because I don't want to put it down the sink because it makes it kind of gum up. I'm afraid it's going to gum up my pipes. So I'm just going to take my plate, my fishy plate, and my seasoning flour plate. I'm putting the flour into the trash. I'm going to put it into the sink to wash later, or have my kids wash later. Okay, and then throw away any kind of packaging, your fish, any plastic. Throw it all into the trash. And then wash your hands with soap and water. So I try to clean up along the way when I'm cooking, just to make it less stressful after dinner or right before dinner. So if you have flour on your countertop, go ahead and grab a wet paper towel and just wipe it down. And just throw that away into your garbage bowl. You might want to take the same paper towel and wipe off any residue of fish that might be around. So this way you have a clean tabletop or a clean countertop to work with. So just wipe everything down with a wet paper towel. All right, cool. So now, you're where I am, I have this tray of seasoned fish. I'm gonna put a few grinds of pepper over it. So you can go ahead and just, on the top layer of fish, you can grind some pepper over it. And maybe again, like a final seasoning of salt if you didn't use a lot of salt earlier. So just a sprinkle of salt over everything. And then we're gonna turn on 3 different things right now. We're gonna turn on your oven to 200. We're just gonna use your oven to warm today. So turn on your oven to 200 with your clean hands. Make sure you've washed your hands and your hands are clean so you're not contaminating the oven handles. So I'm turning my oven to just 200. We just want it hot enough to warm. And then turn your pot of boiling water back on to high. We're gonna get ready to boil our potatoes in a little bit. And you can turn your saute pan for the flat saute pan. I'm using this 12-inch saute pan for the fish. I'm going to turn this on to about medium. Okay. So we have 3 burners going. Your oven at 200, your pot of boiling water, and your saute pan at medium. Any questions? All right. Cool.
Lynna?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you say the saute pan should be heated up now, ready for the fish?
Yes. Put your saute pan onto medium.
Thank you.
All right, so everyone's ready? Okay, cool. So as we're waiting for our pot of water to boil, grab your butter, and I'm gonna start with putting in about maybe like 4 tablespoons. Sorry, let's do 3. Let's do about 3 or 4 tablespoons. You can eyeball it. You don't have to be super accurate. I'm using this is called a fish turner. I don't know if you can see it very well. Let me hold something white against it. This is a fish turner, and you can see it's really pretty actually. It has a very, very thin edge, and the reason it's so thin is so it can really get underneath these very thin, delicate fillets of fish. Yeah, like yours, Corbin. Nice. This is a fish turner. If you don't have a fish turner, you can also use a spatula. McKenna, do you have a question?
Yeah, what's the pan for the pot of water? Or what's
put it up to high so it can start to boil. It's for the potatoes.
Is it the same pot as we did the beans?
Same beans. Okay. Yeah, you can use that same water. And make sure that water is salty, because we want to make sure your potatoes are well seasoned. So I'm going to take my fish turner. Oh, go ahead. Question?
Oh, sorry. Did you put the butter in already?
I'm about to. I'm putting in butter right now. So about 3 tablespoons of butter or so. And then I'm going to also put in a drizzle of olive oil, just like this. I'm just going to put in a little bit of olive oil and some butter. My pan is pretty warm, so it's already starting to brown a little bit, which is fine. I'm going to turn my heat down if it gets to be too you want a nice coating of butter in your saute pan. And I'm going to put in my first few fillets of fish. So you can use tongs. If you don't want to get your hands dirty, you can use your hands or you can use your tongs. Either way. So I'll just use tongs. And I'm going to put in about 3 or 4 fillets, however many will fit in your pan. In this case, you do want them to be able to not overlap. Okay, so I'm just going to put in my fish. It's okay if it bends a little bit, if it's too long for the pan, just like that. I can fit in about 3 fillets. So I'm just going to put them in here. And I have my heat to about medium still. And I'm going to just let it cook on one side for a couple minutes, and then I'm going to very gently flip them. Now is also a good time to grab a platter, to grab your serving platter. And I recommend getting a platter that you feel would be able to withstand about 200 degrees of heat in the oven. So I'm using this one. It's a ceramic one, but yeah, perfect, Lisa. Yes, you and I have the same one. Yeah, hi, David. So grab a platter that will be able to withstand about 200 degrees of heat in the oven. Yeah, ceramic or porcelain should be fine, because what we're going to do is we're going to put our finished fish onto this platter, and then we're going to add to it and let it stay warm in the oven. Okay. So don't use plastic. If it's metal, it's fine too. But ideally, it's a platter that you can just bring to the kitchen, to the dining table, so you don't have to keep using. Yeah. So my fish has been in here for about 2 minutes. I'm just gonna check it. I'm gonna see if it's browned on one side, and it does look like it's browning. So lightly browned. So I'm gonna very carefully, and this is kind of where it gets a little tricky, I'm gonna very carefully flip it and make sure not to splatter oil on myself. Just like that. Just kind of flip it. So you can see what mine looks like. Mine looks very lightly browned on one side. Okay. And then we're just gonna let it sit for another couple minutes on each side. My mashed potato water is not boiling yet, but I'm paying attention to my hot water. Okay. If you don't want to use your spatula to turn the fish, you can also use tongs. But just make sure you get underneath your fish so that it doesn't break. If your fish does break, it's totally fine. It'll still taste great. Okay, so my mashed potato water is starting to boil. So if your mashed potato water is boiling like mine, go ahead and start adding your potatoes very gently into the water. This is when it's handy to have a spider or like a basket of some sort. But I'm going to put my potatoes into my water. Is there one here? There. I'm just going to very gently place it in. And again, this is the same salted water that we use for our blanching our green beans. So this water is already seasoned with salt. So we're just going to put it in and let it come back to a boil. And then we're just going to let it simmer for, I'd say, about 10 minutes or so. Okay. And I'm going to keep this bowl. I'm going to keep this bowl that I have my potatoes in, because we're going to use it later to mash our potatoes. Okay. So I would leave the lid off of your potato pot. You can leave the lid off so you can kind of pay attention and watch it. And so it doesn't like bubble over. Okay, so I'm going to set aside my potato bowl. And I'm going to now take my fish off the stove, out of the pan, and place it on my platter. Because I know that both sides are done now. And look at this one's actually kind of breaking a little bit. It's okay. So now my pan, I still have a little bit of oil and butter left in it. I'm going to add a little bit more. I did not say this was a low-fat dish. This is a very tasty dish, but it does require some butter. Okay, so I'm putting in another couple tablespoons, letting it melt, adding in another couple drizzles of olive oil. There we go. All right, and I'm gonna add 3 more fillets, or however many will fit in your pan after the butter melts. Okay. Awesome. This time I think I'm going to be able to put 4 in. So again, if you're using petrale or lingcod or tilapia, your fish will be a little bit more thick. So you might want to put it in for like 3 or 4 sides, but it should look roughly like this color, like lightly golden brown. And once your oven has preheated to 200, I'm just going to stick this into my oven, and I'm going to take it out whenever I need to add more fish to it. Okay. Then we can just kind of leisurely pan fry our fish, or make a cocktail, as Molly is doing. You making Aperol spritz, Molly? I wish I was there with you. Nice. So everyone's pan frying their fish. In a couple minutes, we're also going to get started on our green beans, but we'll do that at the very end. Green beans will just take the last like 5 minutes or so. So I'm just paying attention to my clock. I'm not setting a timer anymore. I'm just kind of tracking 2 minutes per side from my Dover sole. So fun to see you all cooking. Moo, your camera's off, so I haven't been able to see you, but I assume you're busy in your kitchen, Anna.
Lynna?
Yeah.
So we got distracted. How long do the potatoes go in the water for?
I think it'll take about maybe 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll take ours. I'll check mine I'll be checking mine too every so often. So be very careful when you flip your fish that you don't splatter yourself. And you can also use tongs too if you feel safer. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. If you're finding that your fish are not turning easily and they're sticking to the bottom, it's okay if they stick a little bit. But if they're sticking quite a bit, it probably means that you don't have enough butter and oil, or that your pan is not hot enough. You should only need to flip your fish once. So I have my fish golden brown on one side and McKenna, what are you eating? McKenna, what are you eating?
The frozen Yangleduo.
Oh yeah, Yangleduo. Wait, then who's paying attention to your fish? Your dad?
Yeah, because if I do it, it will all break.
Oh. All right. So as each batch of fish finishes browning, you can take your platter out of your oven and add to your platter of warming fish. Again, my oven's only at 200. And it's so. It's okay if your fish sticks a little. It just means crispy bits at the end. It's yummy. We're gonna deglaze your pan a little bit too. All right. So I'm gonna add a little bit more butter and a little bit more olive oil for every batch that I'm frying. I'm gonna put the warming platter back into the oven. Make sure you use a warm oven mitt. I'm not gonna drive it. Okay. So most of you probably are almost done pan frying all of your fish. All right, so as your fish is finished frying, keep adding to your warming platter. The potatoes should be boiling. So we're going to move on, once the fish is done, we're gonna move on to sauteing our green beans in a bit. But let's just wait for a second for everyone to kind of get to the same point. How are you doing, Griffin? Your mom pan frying? Good. Good? Okay. Every so often, I'm going to take a fork just to test the softness of my potatoes. And my potatoes are still pretty hard, so I think they're going to need at least another 8 minutes or so. I predict we'll be done with dinner at 6:15. If you have any questions, feel free to shout out. Your house smells so good. Does it smell like butter? Smells so good, huh? I see a lot of team efforts in the kitchen today. I know the pan frying is a lot. It's a lot for kids, but I'm proud of you for attempting it. So I'm just flipping my last batch of fish. Okay. There we go. The last batch is going to be the most golden brown because the butter is browned quite a bit in your pan. So as we're waiting for your fish, if you're like me, just kind of waiting for the last couple minutes, go ahead and get your green beans and your shallot ready. Your lemons, get your lemons out. Remember that half lemon I told you about earlier? Get ready to, we're going to use our half lemon in a little bit. And your parsley. All right. Okay. I have some parsley I chopped earlier. Okay. So I'm about to take my last batch of fish out and put it on my warming platter. And then we're gonna make a little sauce with that leftover butter, the bottom of the pan. So I'm about to take my last batch out. I'm gonna place my fish on it.
Cute. Lena, we just cleaned our pan.
Oh, okay. Wow, you're fast. All I'm gonna do, Lisa, is you totally fine. Just squeeze some lemon over your fish that's cooked. But I'll show you what you would have done is I have this just some pan drippings here from the fish. You know, you can see some browning on the bottom. I'm gonna take, my heat is still on, but I'm just gonna squeeze that last half lemon in. Be very careful because it's gonna steam a lot. So kind of do it from on high. You see it's steaming a lot. Just be careful, you don't want it to splatter. Okay. I'm trying to make sure the seeds don't get in. And then I'm gonna take my spatula and I'm just gonna stir and scrape. You can turn the heat off now. I'm just gonna stir my the lemon into the bottom of the pan, just like that. Just so that makes this little sauce. And I'm just gonna pour it, you don't have to, but if you want, you can pour this over your fish. And I'll show you, let me see if I can find a good angle to show you. So I'm just gonna take that. Here, Emmett stove. And then I'm just gonna pour the pan drippings over the fish like that, just so that it gets extra lemony seasoning. And then throw your parsley over the top as well. If you have shallots, you can also add your shallots to this if you want to saute that a little bit. But while we're sauteing our green beans and waiting for our mashed potatoes are finishing, I'm gonna put this back into the oven to stay warm.
Lena?
Yeah.
How much of the lemon do we put in?
I put in a half a lemon.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, so we're done with this pan. I'm done with our fish pan. I'm using a clean saute pan. And we're gonna use this for our green beans. So, hi Kathy.
Lena,
hi.
did you already put the lemon?
Oh, I squeezed the half a lemon into the pan.
For the fish?
Yeah, and if you have some shallots, Anna, you can also put some of your chopped shallots into the fish and let it kind of heat up in there too. Okay, so I'm moving on to my green beans. This is the very last thing we're gonna do. Turn your saute pan onto medium or medium high. Any questions?
Lena, were those shallots for the green beans or are they meant for the fish?
There, you can optionally put some onto the fish,
okay,
but it's for the green beans.
Okay, thanks, Lena.
So I'm waiting for my saute pan to get hot. We're gonna saute the green beans in olive oil. You're supposed to saute in butter, but I don't wanna, you know, give everyone a heart attack. Emmett's like, why not? Okay, fine, I will use some butter. So I'm gonna use a little bit of butter and some olive oil. You can use only olive oil if you want. You can use all butter if you want. I'm gonna put in about, let's see, maybe about 2 tablespoons of butter and a drizzle of olive oil. The olive oil kind of helps prevent the butter from totally burning. So, you know, a nice healthy amount of butter and olive oil, and let that melt. And then I'm gonna put in the shallots. You don't have to use all of your shallots that you cut, because especially, I don't know what size your shallots were, but if you just use your judgment and you decide how much how much shallots you want to put into your green beans. You don't have to use all of the ones that you cut. So I'm putting about half of what I cut in. So I had a pretty big shallot. I'm just going to saute that. Okay. Okay. So let the shallots kind of brown a little bit over medium high heat in your oil. Okay. And make sure everyone's got your shallots into your pan to brown. All right, and then you take your blanched green beans that have been draining, and once you feel like your shallots are just kind of, you know, not completely brown, but just softened, you can go ahead and add in your green beans. And be careful, it might be still wet, so make sure you don't like plop them in, like don't throw them in, just gently place them in. You'll hear them sizzling because there is going to be some water clinging to the beans. And very quickly, just saute them. Just stir them into your butter and shallot mixture, and flip and fold. Make sure that every bean gets coated with some butter and olive oil. Also, I'm going to add some salt. I want to make sure my green beans are seasoned well. I'm adding a little salt. And I'm just going to let this saute for a couple minutes. I don't want it to be too mushy. You can use your judgment. You just want to heat it through. If you like your green beans crispy.
Lynna, 1 second. We had a question.
Yeah.
David, what was the question?
Is the garlic for the green beans with the shallot?
Oh, so yes, I did ask you to put in the garlic. If you want, you can just mash. The garlic is supposed to go into the mashed potatoes. Sorry, I totally forgot that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So I'm just gonna stir my beans. I'm now gonna go test my potatoes. I'm gonna take a fork. I'm just gonna very, very carefully test one and see how soft it is. Be careful of the steam. And my potatoes are done. So my potatoes were in there for about maybe 10 to 12 minutes. So my potatoes, I just tested, I just poked one, and it was, my fork went in all the way. There was no give. So my potatoes went all the way in. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to take my spider or your slotted spoon and a clean, like your potato bowl, the bowl that you used to, you know, store your potatoes earlier. I'm going to take my spider and I'm going to take out the potatoes and put it into my bowl here. I'm also about to turn the heat off on my green beans because I think my green beans are about ready. So my green beans, you can test one. Test your green beans for seasoning. Make sure it's salty enough. Test it for doneness. Okay, so my green beans are done and they're seasoned. And now I'm gonna put the potatoes in. Just gonna ladle them out of my pot of boiling water. My heat is off on my potatoes. All right. Great. So my potatoes are in my bowl. We're gonna get ready to mash. I also want to remind you to turn your oven off. I know your fish is still in your oven. Go ahead and turn your oven off because you're about to take your fish out. You don't need the oven going anymore. So I'm going to take the last few tablespoons of butter that I have. I'm going to add it straight to the hot potatoes and let them melt. I'm gonna take my masher. I'm gonna mash my potatoes together. If you have garlic, go ahead and add your garlic to it. I'm so sorry, I forgot to ask you to add it to your hot water. But if you don't mind some raw tasting garlic, you can add it to your mashed potatoes. And then if you have cream or half and half, go ahead and add some of that to your potatoes too.
Lena, if our potatoes are still cooking, would you put in like a whole clove or go ahead and chop it up?
Oh, if your potatoes are still cooking, go ahead and just put in the whole clove.
Okay, thank you.
So I just put in about a cup of cream and maybe like 3 tablespoons of butter. You can put more or less in if you want. And I'm also going to add some salt because not too much yet. We'll test it for salt later. And our water was already seasoned. Go ahead and you can just mash your potatoes with your potato masher. Again, the skin will be very thin and easy to eat and very good for you because, again, the nutrients are all in the skin. If you want, you can add your garlic. I'm so sorry again. I forgot to remind you to put it into your boiling water. Okay. If you have anyone who wants to test your potatoes, you can, now's a good time to grab a tasting spoon.
Auntie Lena, how much half and half do we add?
I added about, depends on how many potatoes you have, but I added about a cup. But you can add maybe start with a half a cup and then add more. And again, don't forget to add the butter. So my potatoes are about done mashing. Yeah?
How much butter did you put in?
I put in about 3 tablespoons. You can put more or less in as you want. And if you're dairy free, you can add olive oil. But the classic French way, of course, is butter. And I'm going to taste it for salt. Yeah?
Never mind.
All of your burners should be off right now. So your green beans should be, your green beans are done and they should be off. The heat should be off. Don't forget to turn the burner off for your potatoes. And don't forget to turn the oven off. Olivia, did you get a haircut? Olivia Martin?
No.
Did you get a haircut? You did not get a haircut? Your hair looks different to me. All right, so I'm gonna just taste my potatoes now and taste it for salt and creaminess. Mine needs more salt, but it tastes, the creaminess and the flavor is definitely there. Okay, excellent. Want me to? Okay, Emmett wants me to put my shallots in. Okay, I'll put in my shallots. Our family really likes onion and garlicky flavors. Okay, so with your completed mashed potatoes, you can transfer this to a serving platter, or you can be like me and just just put it right onto the dining table. Your green beans should be done. Go ahead and transfer those to a serving platter. And your fish should be done. Yeah? Question?
Did you already add the heavy cream?
I added the heavy cream to the potatoes.
Okay, thank you.
I added about a cup, but maybe start with half a cup if you want, if you're afraid to use too much.
1 cup? Or half a cup?
Yes.
As you're plating everything, you can also kind of clean up a little bit, clean up your workspace, throw away anything that doesn't need to be there. Yeah?
Did you add the quarter lemons yet?
Oh, the quartered lemons are gonna be like a garnish around your fish platter.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do with my lemons. So once you're ready to eat, I'm gonna take, don't forget to turn the stove off, turn your oven and stove off. I have my lemons that I cut from Taryn and Coda's tree, and I'm just gonna put them around the fish platter so people can help themselves to lemon. Oops. And then if you have your parsley, you can, if you don't have it already in your pan, you can also sprinkle some over the fish. And that'll make it look nice too. All right. So we have potatoes, we have our green beans, and your lemons that you want to just use as a garnish. Any questions? Don't forget to turn off your burners.